As the president continues to lie about the coronavirus outbreak, we are now seeing what it's like when a lifelong scam artist is in charge of responding to a public health crisis. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. When it comes to his presidency, there's nothing Donald Trump cares about more than the stock market. He brags about it virtually every chance he gets. And on Friday, during a visit to CDC headquarters in Atlanta, Trump predicted that the coronavirus outbreak, which has now hit more than 100,000 cases worldwide and over 500 here in the U.S., would actually be good for the economy.
You just addressed the economic piece, though, because there's obviously a lot of fear about the economy.
I mean, it is a fact. Now, you know, if you know anything about me, I like when people happen to stay in the United States and spend their money in the United States, okay? So I think people are staying in the United States more. They're going to spend their money in the United States.
That's right. Trump thinks coronavirus will help the economy because people will spend money here in the U.S. In fact, I've been buying toilet paper at Costco that I'm going to resell at a profit if things get worse. But there you go. The president said on Friday that coronavirus would actually be good for the economy. Let's see how the stock market did when it opened on Monday morning.
We're coming on the air with breaking news. This is the New York Stock Exchange. The trading day is just beginning on Wall Street, and there are fears that the Dow will drop and drop quickly, and we're already seeing that.
The Dow Industrials are off right now 17 points, or 6.5%. You've got the NASDAQ off 5.8%, and then the S&P down 6.33%.
At this point, I've never seen this much anxiety on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. There are traders running everywhere. We are watching these levels.
Has trading now stopped? Has it hit that 7% trigger?
Trading has stopped because we've seen a drop of 7%, which means trading will stop for the next 15 minutes.
I'm selling this toilet paper for $1,000 a sheet. That's right. 3 days. 3 days after Trump predicted coronavirus would be good for the economy, the stock market plunged so much when it opened, the trading had to be stopped. The drop was so bad, the red arrow on the TV screen grew legs and ran away. Now, the sell-off wasn't due entirely to coronavirus. It was also due in large part to war over oil prices launched by Saudi Arabia. Still, a lot of people are understandably worried. And while there's no reason to panic, governments across the world are taking extreme measures to mitigate the outbreak. Over the weekend, Italy put millions of people on lockdown in regions hit hardest by the outbreak, where people were rushing to catch the last trains leaving Milan before the lockdown took effect.
Officials in Italy putting 16 million people on lockdown. Now, that's a quarter of the country's population. Video shows people rushing to catch the last trains as they left northern Italy.
This is what Italians look like when they're rushing. Obviously, in Italy, to run for a train is a fate worse than death. I'm shocked they didn't have cigarettes in one hand and Aperol spritzes in the other. I mean, if you've ever been to Italy, you know that for Italians, what you just saw there is DEFCON 1. I mean, in Italy, stores just close in the afternoon so people can nap, and planes just take off whenever they want. At the Rome airport, most departure times say it leaves when it leaves, capiche? And here in the U.S., New York, the state with the most cases, is currently taking its own precautions to deal with the coronavirus. Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency as the number of cases rises to over 100, with thousands more being asked to self-quarantine. And on Sunday, Cuomo offered this advice to New Yorkers taking the subway.
If you can move to a train car that is not as dense, if you see a packed train car, let it go by, wait for the next train.
I'm sorry, did you think people were picking crowded cars on purpose? Every train car is packed. Excuse me, where? So sorry, where are the less dense train cars? That's why those Showtime subway dancers learned how to hang upside down from the roof so they could fit onto a packed car. As a general rule, anytime you see a subway car that isn't packed, that means one of two things. Either it's 4 a.m. on a Tuesday or someone did something unspeakable. Oh, look, honey, this one's almost empty. Oh, that smell. Oh, my God. Now, there's no reason to panic. In fact, as bad as things seem, there are reasons for optimism. China and South Korea have seen slowdowns in new cases, and people in areas affected by the outbreak have been making the best of the situation. For example, in Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the outbreak, students who've been on lockdown were assigned homework through an app until they figured out a way to get out of it. In lockdown Wuhan, teachers used an app called DingTalk to set up homework. Kids realized if it got enough one-star reviews, it would be removed from the App Store. Thousands of reviews flooded in, and DingTalk's ratings fell from 4.9 to 1.4 overnight. That is amazing. Although, I will say, it is a bummer for the people who built that app. I mean, you conceive of an app, you develop it, you go through rounds and rounds of beta testing, you finally have a successful launch, and then this brings it down. Hey, what happened to that app of yours? Oh, a bunch of dickhead kids one-starred me. Well, you made a homework app, so maybe you're the dickhead. But honestly, maybe we should put these kids in charge of the coronavirus response, because while they were out there coming up with ways to shut down apps, the most powerful man in the world was visiting CDC headquarters in Atlanta on Friday in a hat and windbreaker, looking not like a man steady at the helm of a crisis, but like a hungover Little League umpire. Seriously, man, what is this look? You are inside. Are you expecting a thunderstorm? I heard this was a laboratory, and as everyone knows, laboratories run on lightning because that's how they invented Frankenstein. And as countries across the world were testing tens of thousands of people a day and taking extreme measures to mitigate the outbreak, our president was at the CDC talking about how he was getting his information not from doctors, but from his favorite channel, Fox News.
As of the time I left the plane with you, we had 240 cases, or that's at least what was on a very fine network known as Fox News.
Why are you getting your information about how many cases there are from Fox News? You're at the CDC. You are surrounded. You are currently surrounded by doctors. Just turn around and ask one of them. Doctor, give it to me straight. Did you see me on Hannity last night? Was I good? Kind of terrifying that in the middle of a global pandemic, Trump is getting his information from Fox News, because at the same time Trump is listening to Fox, public health officials are worried about making him angry by telling the truth. For example, Politico reported that public health groups are hoping to convey factual information to Americans without antagonizing Trump. They're afraid of antagonizing Trump. That is insane. They're talking about the president the way a mailman talks about a Rottweiler, which makes sense because Trump always looks like he's about to bite an intruder on the ass. And you can tell that the cult of personality that insulates Trump from dissent is having an impact, because Trump appointees keep going out of their way to compliment him in situations where it's totally unnecessary, from the health secretary to the head of the CDC to the Surgeon General just yesterday on CNN.
Thank you, Mr. President, for gathering your public health experts here today and for your strong leadership in keeping America safe.
I want to thank you for your decisive leadership in helping us, put public health first.
We want to make sure folks who are out there who are at risk, they're taking extra precautions. But speaking of being at risk, the president, he sleeps less than I do, and he's healthier than what I am.
No, he's not. There's no way he's healthier than you are. I mean, look at him. He doesn't even know the difference between inside and outside. I mean, I expect him to bring an umbrella, but he doesn't know how to use one. Trump is desperately trying to paint a rosy picture to help both his political fortunes and the economy, which he sees as crucial to his reelection. For example, on Friday, Trump actually admitted that he wanted to keep people trapped on a cruise ship where passengers and crews were diagnosed with coronavirus, rather than bringing them onto the U.S. mainland, because it would increase the number of coronavirus cases in the U.S., and that would make him look bad.
I mean, frankly, if it were up to me, I would be inclined to say, leave everybody on the ship for a period of time and you use the ship as your base. But a lot of people would rather do it a different way. They'd rather quarantine people on the land. Now, when they do that, our numbers are going to go up. Okay? Our numbers are going to go up. They would like to have the people come off. I'd rather have the people stay, but I'd go with them. I told them to make the final decision. I would rather, because I like the numbers being where they are. I don't need to have the numbers double because of one ship.
I'm sorry, but keeping people trapped on a cruise ship, even if they don't have coronavirus, should be an impeachable offense, because nothing good ever happens on a cruise ship. You never once have heard a positive news story about a cruise ship. You never read the headline, "Cruise ships' toilets work great." This is yet another reminder that Trump is a lifelong scam artist who is constantly running a con and trying to BS his way out of that con. It's obvious he doesn't have a plan for anything other than his own self-preservation. For example, there's been a major delay in testing capacity due to CDC errors, which experts have called a national disgrace. Last week, the White House said it would fail to meet its goal of providing enough coronavirus test kits for 1 million people by the end of the week. And Vice President Mike Pence said they won't have enough tests to meet demand. Then out of nowhere, during his visit to the CDC on Friday, Trump not only said everyone could get a test, he said the tests were perfect and for some reason compared them to his infamous phone call with the president of Ukraine. You know, the one that got him impeached.
Anybody that wants a test can get a test. Anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests. And the tests are beautiful. Anybody that needs a test gets a test. But anybody that needs a test can have a test. They're all set. They have them out there. And the tests are all perfect. Like the letter was perfect. The transcription was perfect.
Anyone who needs a test gets the test. I need a test, not you. You're comparing the test for a global pandemic to the thing that got you impeached? That's not a good comparison. That's like borrowing your friend's Kia and saying, this reminds me a lot of my last car, the one I totaled after driving it straight into a Wendy's. What we're seeing now is what happens when a lifelong scam artist has to manage a major public health crisis. Trump has always been able to BS and threaten and litigate his way out of accountability and avoid consequences. And now, as he oversees the government's response to a global public health emergency, he's trying to do the same thing. And it's worth remembering that Trump's scams didn't just include a fake charity or a scam university. He also ran a scam healthcare company.
The Daily Beast reports today on the vitamin-selling venture launched in 2009 by a company called the Trump Network. It was a multi-level marketing scheme along the lines of Amway or Mary Kay. The scheme peddled a number of diet products and sham nutritional supplements, including a supposedly customized vitamin regime requiring users to send in a urine sample packed inside a very classy, special Trump-branded box. According to Harvard doctor and supplement expert interviewed by the Daily Beast, the process is, quote, a scam.
For $140, you could send in your urine and get a tailored version of vitamins, none of which was proven by science, by the way. And they would be delivered to you, and you'd pay, $70 a month, every month, to increase your health.
I'm sorry, but how do you tailor vitamins for someone based on their urine? You don't want like a cheek swab or a blood sample? That should be a red flag right away. That would be like if you signed up for 23andMe and in order to give you your family history, they made you in a paper bag. So that's the guy overseeing the government's response to a global pandemic that threatens to overwhelm the U.S. healthcare system. And just as he lied about his scam vitamin kits, he's trying to lie about the coronavirus outbreak. Here he is on Friday, justifying his lies by claiming he has a natural ability for dealing with this kind of thing.
You know, my uncle was a great person. He was at MIT. He taught at MIT for, I think, like a record number of years. He was a great super genius, Dr. John Trump. I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it. Every one of these doctors said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability. Maybe I should have done that instead of running for president.
Yes. Yes, you should have. You should have applied to medical school, and you should have filmed the reactions of the faculty of that medical school reading your application, and you should have posted that on TikTok and gotten 1 trillion views. Seriously, you think instead of running for president at age 70, you should have become a doctor instead? The only white coat you should be wearing is a straitjacket. Also, there is no way, I'm sorry, but there is no way a doctor said the words, how do you know so much about this stuff? I mean, maybe one of them said it sarcastically, like, you said, I hear the coronavirus will go away when it gets less cloudy, and they said, oh man, how do you know so much about this stuff? Also, you think you know about science because your uncle was a doctor? People don't just automatically know what their uncles know. Otherwise, we would all know the lyrics to every Steely Dan song. This is what happens when you put a lifelong con artist and pathological liar with zero intellectual curiosity in charge of the government. When an emergency comes along, he doesn't care about solving it. He just wants to BS his way through it. And now he's actively making the situation worse. The president is a deluded idiot who thinks he's a
super genius.
It's been a closer look.